I found that that is really part of the etiquette that people have not integrated into their whole deal, is that you can't record people unless you give them permission. And people are just like, hey, hey, hey. So
I-
anyway,
yeah, I appreciate
Amanda,
the Yeah, so hi everybody. Hope everyone's having a good Friday afternoon. Mr. Milner, hello. You haven't seen me since I was a guest of Lisa's ages ago back in the day. And I just really appreciated the content and just the program that you guys did. It was my first time in LA and I knew nobody. And Lisa like let me come and sit on those events. So very grateful for those.
wow.
Yeah. So in terms of my perspective, I want to make sure I'm answering the question, but I don't know, when my perspective for the panel and thinking about like, the future of entertainment and like what students can do to really make sure that they have access to opportunity and make sure they have the skills they need. It's really just speaking to the programs that are out there like HBCU in LA, like Academy Gold Rising. Like there are just so many different programs. There's HU Entertainment that's with Amazon Studios right now, but that's for Howard University students. So it's just really understanding all the different things you have access to and how you can really break into the industry, how you can use your networking. So for example, some students who I speak with, they'll say, I don't know how to really like network right now just because the world shut down, it's COVID. But actually, this is kind of one of the better opportunities to network because now, because everything's virtual and things were shut down, there was a very long period of time where development executives and people just like weren't in production. So they had more time to be available for an informational interview, to be available to speak to students. And so taking advantage of that time, like just reaching out to people via LinkedIn saying, hey, I would love an informational interview. If I can have maybe 15 minutes of your time, I'd love to learn more about X, Y, and Z and really giving them specific questions to answer. And people will take time out of their day to really answer those questions. So I just really want to, I'm no Jeff Clanigan, 20, 30-year veteran changing the game, but I will say that with my journey, it's not been traditional in a lot of senses, but I think I can provide context of tangible actions that can be taken to help people really use what they have to get ahead in the game.
Okay, great. And for everybody, I have put in the chat box the quote unquote title and somewhat of the abstract. So if you can just take a few seconds to look at that is what has been published by the California State University Entertainment Alliance. And while you're reading that, I just want to give you guys a little bit of a backdrop on how I've met them and what they are to me and my organization. Um, they are a grantee from the Chancellor's Office for the 23 campuses for the state of California University system who have digital media and entertainment career pathways. The Chancellor gave them this grant to obviously help the rank and file, the alumni, get the system to better prepare students for workforce. And that's their version of what they can do to become almost like a internal agency that would have not just career counselors but have case managers to help these students one-on-one or one-to-many get themselves prepared once they get a BA. And I have been asked by that system to become an advisor, and I'm one of 36 people who are advisors. Most of them are much more well published and well read than I am. Um, but I am the only one that I know of that's currently mentoring for students. One is an MFA candidate, the other ones are getting ready to graduate. And Cameron's on the call, he's one of these folks. And the real thrust of my efforts to help them is to give them these students as case studies to figure out what we can integrate into my report back to the 23 campuses about what I've learned about the disparities, what I learned about the needs, and really what are some of the things that I believe these students are being overlooked and their capacity to um, do some DIY stuff and to research how they can better identify what they'd like to take on as the next steps after graduation. Some of them are declared, majors and they've gotten degrees, but they're still not sure if that's exactly what they want to do. So they haven't been exposed to a lot of industry and a lot of different emerging technologies and tools. So that's kind of what I've been doing, is to let them know, to open their minds to the possibilities, that there's some other things they didn't learn in their capstone classes. And those things are blowing their minds. They're like, well, I've never heard that before, or I've never thought about that, or things that maybe, again, better said by mentors who have specific relational things that they can help these people with. Like Ted is really, again, somebody who can help people with getting into um, being executive to a CEO or a vice president of a corporation. Well, a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to do that. I went to school to get my MFA, or to, to be the next Quentin Tarantino. So I don't want to be an assistant. Well, they've never heard Ted talk to them about how a lot of people who are showrunners, or, some of the biggest producers, started with his firm exactly as an assistant. So, oh, I didn't know that. So it's a lot of they don't know, and it can fill up the ocean as to what they don't know. And I'm like, well, who's going to tell them these things? And that's what I'm hoping you guys on this call can actually help to try to talk about, some solutions and resources that we can catalog, so that after the panel, they can have some resources and a catalog of different things that they can actually start to put into play for themselves. That's the best way for me to look at this panel and my relationship with the California State University Entertainment Alliance. So with that, I want to introduce in this order Jay Tucker, because he's very relational to what you may have experienced with Howard to Hollywood. So Jay, can you introduce yourself to Amanda?
Hi, Amanda. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Jay Tucker. I run the Center for Management of Enterprise in Media, Entertainment, and Sports at UCLA's Business School. It's called the Center for Memes. I've been there for the last 4 years. Before that, I was at USC running a center called the Institute for Communication Technology Management. Both of them had an entertainment focus, but the one at USC was tech, telecommunications, and media. And while I was at USC, I started this thing called Silicon Beach at USC, which is where I met Kevin. Very interested in trying to help young people both find their kind of skill, um, and develop the skills to be included in opportunities that will lead to careers, and to help them develop their kind of leadership profile, right? So that, we're not necessarily focused on the hot skill set of the week, because as we've seen, the technology disruption at this point is accelerating to the point where, you can get very obsessed with learning Python or C++ or whatever, and then find out that in your areas of focus, that's no longer the tool that's being used. So we have to help young people understand business skills, leadership skills, communication skills, and so on. And so I've been working with Kevin for a number of years, actually trying to help secure partners, resources, and so on, so we can find some kind of way to start, the equivalent of an academy for young people, even though we don't necessarily have walls or a ceiling for hours, but to try to think about programs that help bring them along a path and hopefully introduce them to people who will help them along the way.
Great, thanks. And again, I started with Jay because I want to be relational for you, Amanda. If Jay has the time, I'd love him to be on the discussion, because he has really been the guy who's told me that I have to be a better driver of something focused, because I've got so many different things I'm trying to do, but I've got to come up with one specific thing that all the stakeholders can rally around. And that is, kind of the one thing that's so dis- disparate in my approach, is because I keep finding out that there's different, holes that come onto the platform, and I've got to chase down these leaks in what I'm doing. So Jay has really been a guy who's helped me understand the need to really get focused on stakeholder management. So at some point, I like to think of you as a potential stakeholder in what it is that we do. If you enjoy this process, then I like to think that that's what we're going to bring you into focus as a potential stakeholder. Okay. The next person that I want to introduce you to is Cameron. Cameron, say hello and introduce yourself to Amanda.
Hey, we spoke briefly the last time, but I'm a student at San Francisco State University. I'm a cinema student. I recently just moved to Los Angeles because I'm actually graduating this May. So I'm a part of the project, and I think the biggest thing for students now is getting the skills, but also getting the resources, right? So I also think it's a it's a journey that we all take. I think that some people don't know what they want, so they need to be opened up to those resources. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. All right, Cameron. All right, last but not least, Ted Milner. Say hello, Amanda, again.
Hello, Amanda, again. How are you? Hey, Amanda, who invited you to the HBCU? Lisa Young? Thursday nights? Your Mike.
No, it's Lisa Satchel. She went to Howard University.
Oh, Satchel. Okay, okay. Yeah. 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 So, you know that side of us. That's our program. Jay, you know a little bit about HBCU in LA, yes? And Cameron, I don't think you do, but it's a program that my wife runs that supports kids that are students that are HBCUs to help them pursue a career within entertainment. So independent of that, I run an entertainment employment agency. We've been doing it for about 30 years. I don't know, Amanda, how much you know about that, but I'll be real brief. But I'm usually pretty modest about what we do and how we do it. So excuse my boldness today, but I need to be frank because we don't have a lot of time. But basically, I've been empowered to help people change their lives. And so what people don't know is the reach and the talent that we have. And I don't share that with them. And the reason I don't share that with them is because they will bombard me on hooking them up. And so students like Cameron will want me to put them as a VP. So currently right now, if I said the company, you would all recognize it. But right now they're sourcing for a vice president of production. Then there's another company who's a major player who's produced quite a few things in sports that all of you have seen. They're looking for a COO, and they're looking for a VP of finance. The VP of finance is going to pay maybe around $225. But primarily what we do is we've been sourcing for administrative support to the industry, meaning to the networks, studios, whether it's business affairs, whether it's development, whether it's reality programming, research, marketing, PR. That's what we do. We place thousands. I probably have interviewed over 10,000 people, and thousands and hundreds that are now executives. The executive vice president of NBC, who's the brother, we placed him there. He's now the EVP. Jesse Collins Entertainment, Dion Harmon, she's his EVP. They did the Super Bowl this year. We placed her as an assistant. There's a few that we placed at HBO as a director of business affairs. So God's just really blessed us when we launched this to have relationships with main players in entertainment, not wannabe producers, but people who are actually doing things. And it's been mainly networks and studios. So what we've been privileged to do is to understand what they want, how they want it, and really who they want it from. And I would even go a little further to even understand their bigotry or their hesitation with people of color. And also with the knowledge of how to work them. So those are all the things that I study and I watch when people go full-time, what those full-time people have in common, what they do consistently that are successful, but the people that fail, what they consistently do, and there is a consistent pattern. And so I try to interrupt that pattern. One of the things I stopped doing in the past, probably 8 to 10 years, I stopped trying to educate stupid. I just stopped because they were draining me. And usually when they're draining me from the people who really need me. I'm spending all this time with stupid. And when I have a person like Cameron who really will serve and work hard, he's not getting my attention because I'm trying to convince this person to be different than the way that they want to be. I just stopped it. Stay stupid. So I have a little system that I do to evaluate people when they're talking to me. And when I see it arise, I test it. And if it confirms, it's not necessarily 3 strikes, you're out. 2 strikes, I'm done. Sometimes if I'm confused, I'll give them 3 strikes, but 2 strikes, I'm usually done because there's too many people that need help in life. You know, I think we spend half of our life just trying to navigate through certain things, you know, and you're just dealing with nonsense, just not nonsense that just drains you. And if God's gonna put you in my path, then let me engage you for purpose. You know, let me truly support in a way that can expand your vision. He's the EVP of NBC, controlling the content of what the world sees on TV. And we placed him there. His career exists today. I talked to a guy just yesterday who works with, her name will come to me, but he's her VP now. I think his title is a VP of production. But he was just telling me how critical we were in the process while he was working as a temp for probably about 10 years and just consistently keeping him working. Although he was overqualified for that, he still worked that, but he was humble. He said, Ted, but what was key is that you put me at TNT and I was offered at the ABC assignment a full-time position, but I turned it down. Then I went back to temping at TNT. But when I went to TNT, the person I'm working with now, their production company was 1 floor below us. And had I not been there, I would have never met them. And now I'm the VP of that production company. So there's a lot of people that have great talent within them. I mean, just great ability. But if you can't display it, what good does it do? What good does it do for you to go to UCLA, learn all the things, sit under Jay's teaching, and then you come out and then you're working at Starbucks for 4 years?
Wow.
You know, what have you accomplished? You know, so we have to get past the point of, if there's purpose, there's usually going to be a path of an individual that's going to say, I like you, and they're going to promote you. It's not necessarily going to be your talents. It's going to be how fond of you they are with you, how much they like you. And that's usually based upon, which we will define as favor, which is usually based upon how you serve. If you really want favor from people, serve them. And so when I was talking to this guy, who's now the VP of the production company, I said, you know, what I did when you were working for me, I served you. And so I understand that my role is to place people. So I serve my clients, but at the same time, I serve my temps. And so I told him, obviously I'm smarter than you, because who's working for who? You working for me. So obviously, so he starts laughing. I said, so obviously I'm smarter than you, but at the same time, I humble myself to serve you. And so if you get out of line and you think that my company exists because of the one assignment you're working for me, I'll let you know who really has the power. I'll let you know who's really in charge. So, you know, it's a beautiful thing to see and to be blessed with the power to influence people's lives. You know, what we do, particularly what Kevin's attempted to do and what Jay has been doing, is talking to students and influencing people and creating pathways and visions for us, particularly as people of color. I feel that we are strategically placed where we are. And I am not afraid to employ Black people. I am not afraid. And so I will hook us up.
Okay. And let me flip this around, because I need to steer this in the direction of the run of show for us to kind of have some things to noodle on this weekend.
Okay, just before you do, I just want to say one last thing, because Ted just said a word right there. I think, you know, a lot of times we talk about motivation and whether or not somebody is a self-starter, and we get it wrong. And the reason we get it wrong is the person doesn't know enough about their manager's needs or the company's needs to be able to be proactive. So they're stuck and they don't know who or how to ask. So in addition to the things that we're talking about now with respect to, you got to have the right mindset. Here is where some of the opportunities are. These are the skills you need to develop, yada, yada, yada. We also need to just give young people space to be able to find trusted advisors who they can ask questions of so that they can better understand what their role is so that they can show their passion. Because, we already have a fair dose of imposter syndrome already because people are always trying to tell us that we're less than. You put somebody in a new situation and, the fear of failure often overrides the sense of like, let me get this opportunity, right? I might screw it up, but let me just try and see what happens. Because if I get it right, I might be able to move on to the next thing. We're sitting there like, but I don't even know how this works. I don't know what they really want. And I'll tell you that while that mindset is not as common for people of my vintage who grew up kind of with their parents out of the house while they were at home unsupervised, the under 35 set were raised differently. And so even in our community, there's a lot of that kind of need for them to have a little bit more going for them so they understand why they are where they are. And sometimes it's frustrating. We kind of like, really, you asking me that? But we have to figure out how to start conversations where they feel like they can come back to us or somebody they trust so that they, ask the right questions so that they can then go out there and be proactive and serve in the way that Ted was talking about. Because really, at the end of the day, most young people looking for opportunities don't wake up in the morning thinking, okay, let me figure out how I'm gonna slack off today. Right? But
Right.
as Ted said, we then go back and talk to these employers, and whether we're talking about the interview, the work, the work style, the affect, or the work product, we're finding out, oh, well, but so-and-so didn't do this, or they did this wrong, or I was expecting them to come and do an ABC, right? So there's a gap between that desire and the execution, right? And some of that we can help with. That's all.
Right.
So go
So
on,
Jay,
Renishaw.
so let me ask you this. How do we, as influencers on their lives, how do we create that space where they feel that they can come to us? What do we need to do that we may not be doing, and what are we doing that is correct?
Well, first of all, I don't presume to tell you and Stacy was correct because the track record is serious. So I'm, but I will say that you shoot straight with the people you work with, and that has a certain amount of cachet later on when you need to pull them aside. What I'm talking about is this other thing that's not as clear, which is how do they know to come to you before it gets to the point where you need to pull them aside?
Mm-mm.
And I'm not so sure how we do that other than having a longer time horizon where we interact and build relationships. And I think one of the hurdles that Kevin has been dealing with is that he's basically playing whack-a-mole based on who's willing to provide space or resources or students for a given program. And so that consistency is not there. I would guess that you need 9 to 18 months with the same cohort of folks before there's really a real legit relationship there. And that is very hard in an environment where Kevin is trying to figure out where the next funding source is coming from. So part of this is like, you got to have some consistency, both with respect to the people involved, right? And with the instruction, the messages, the encouragement that you're sharing with them so that there's a common language there and some common expectations, but also just so that they know, because they've seen you more than once, that you actually care and that they can email you or call you. And they need to understand that if they call at a bad time, you just won't pick up the phone, but that they're welcome to call, right? And that is the thing that's very, very hard to do when we're interacting with these young people, 2 or 3 times, and then they're moving on to something else. So I think I don't know if there's anything that for example, Ted, that you could do better. I think this is another reason that we need to find some institutional and sustainable stakeholders for Kevin, so that there's something in place that's going to last a minute, right? That's when I think you'll get some more of that glue, and the students will come back, and we can, hopefully help them avoid some of the pitfalls we know are coming.
Amen.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do, and I'm going to ask for Amanda's permission. I saw the Facebook Live event that you guys did. I believe it was on March 6th, Amanda, where you had
Because I'm trying to think, because we've been like, there's been a lot of panels, a lot of things going on. So March 6th, what was the topic?
it was a
Because
Facebook Live. You guys did on Facebook Live, and it was 3 of you guys, Leslie Orr, and I can't remember the other young lady who was with Brian Smiley.
oh, so yes, that was with Adweek, and oh, I didn't know it was. I don't know, for some. Oh, they put it on Facebook Live, I believe. But basically, it was myself. It was Leslie Orr. She's now a manager of operations and culture at Laugh Out Loud Network, and then also Kayla. Last name escapes me right now, just because it's been a busy day. But Kayla, she's supports Brian Smiley. So it was the 3 of us talking about our experiences, just being from assistant to manager for Leslie, and just like, assistant to coordinator for me, and just and basically assistant for Kayla, and just talking about how we got to that journey, some of the things that we inherently feared on that journey to where we are currently in our positions. And yeah, just really having a moment to empower students, because a lot of times you think, what do you have to offer for a role? I get that a lot from some students that I mentor. They feel like because they don't have a lot of experience on a desk, or they feel because they don't have a lot of experience in the industry, they can't go for that job. And we were trying to, in that point, also empower them about like, hey, you matter. Hey, you have experiences that matter because you're the audience that they're trying to serve. So you can even bring that perspective in a way that's humble, in a way that's appropriate, but just know that you have that kind of power inside of you when you have doubt. So yes, I remember that live. All I have to say, I remember the live. Yes.
Right. So I wanted to share with the team a few minutes of that, if that's okay. And I want you to set it up a little bit by whatever you can remember about the outcomes from that meeting. I mean, from that presentation you guys did, because I think I grabbed about 3 minutes and 59 seconds of just you without the other ladies. But there was a point frames where they're both, or both those people were in the frame with you. But I focused on you because you kind of dominated, the presentation at the beginning, at the outset, just in the way
Oh, okay.
just in the way that I received you making and presenting yourself. Presentation is everything, especially when you see young people today. A lot of them are very, very reluctant, very shy to present themselves in forums, especially where there may be other adults, or there may be peers or adults in the room. And that's what I'm finding is when you find these people, they're either too shy or they're at the other end of the spectrum. They're too much. And you handled it really well because you were the last person to present. So is there anything you can do to set up the outcome or the reaction from that presentation? Because is what I want to try and capture in this conversation, giving you the spotlight. That's what I saw.
I mean, I appreciate all of the compliments for, my sharing my story in that live. Honestly, I really think that all 3 of us did a really wonderful job, but also that came through preparation, right? So Kayla, Leslie, and myself, we all prepared because we said, we really want these students to get the most value. How do we do that? How do we make sure that this is a digestible format that makes sense? Let's also think of what each of us has a strength for, so that we can kind of present that in a way that's structured so it can be received. So I guess the outcome of that live, I mean, basically we got like a lot of feedback from students. They really loved that we were giving them tangible information. I think that really helped a lot. We did this through Adweek, and Adweek said this was a great panel, and hopefully we'll be doing this again next year. So that was an outcome of it as well. And outside of that, I think the outcome was just really making students feel like they could like kind of go forth from that conversation. I had some students reach out just to do follow-ups, which I thought was really great. Giving them advice about how to navigate their career, because I showed them opportunities that they kind of didn't know about.
I want to talk a little bit about my journey.
I'm sorry about that. I was trying to queue it up for you guys. I thought I had it on the desktop, but I can't find it. So I just uploaded it on private. So I want to share it with you guys through my desktop. So I'm only going to share with you 3 minutes of what I saw, okay? And share this with the team. because it was very powerful for me. All right, hold on here. Let me do share the screen here.
So I also went to grad school, Howard University's film school, and that's where I really was able to cut my teeth and really understand what this film industry was about. I started from a non-traditional energy as well. So I started from theater, thought I was going to be a theatrical producer, but then I actually wanted to expand my horizons and get more into the digital space and really talk about film and how it can really reach people globally, especially through film and television. And so I did a lot of hustling, a lot of internships, networked my tail off to get to where I am today. I had my start in LA with the summer internship with Macro, which I got in a very non-traditional way, which we will talk about later. And then from there, I went to work at an agency, United Talent Agency, which represented people like Kevin Hart and Issa Rae. And from there, I got recruited to work at Disney in theatrical research and using data analytics as kind of my skill set in order to get me into that wonderful organization that I got a lot of experience from. And then from there, I came to work where I am now at Laugh Out Loud Network. So that's a little bit about my backstory, about some of my colleagues' backstories. But what I would love to do now is transition into how you can get started where you are, right? And I think we're each going to go through and talk about the different areas of how you get to that next level and how you get from being a student into the industry. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and get started, right, ladies, in terms of how we get started in the industry?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Let me tell you this. As a student, you think to yourself, how can I even break into this industry? You might not be based in LA, you might not be based in New York, you might not be based in Atlanta, some of the key hubs that we know today. Here's what I would say. Get started where you are. When I say that, I mean really take advantage of your surroundings. You are a student. That means you have access to opportunities that otherwise adults and people who are not students will not have. Are you reaching out to your local film offices in your areas and talking about the different production assistant opportunities and different opportunities you have to work on films locally in your area? Are you reaching out to your professors and asking them about extra help on some of their projects? A lot of these professors in the film that are teaching film right now, they actually have side projects they're working on. So you might want to ask if you can help with their research, help with the PA. And PA, just in case no one knows, is production assistant. And you don't have to have that much experience to be a production assistant. Literally, production assistants are gophers. You're getting coffee, you're running errands, you're helping on set as needed, you're lifting things. Sometimes it's just helpful being tall and just helping people with projects just like that. Listen, I'm 5'10", I understand. Hey, help me lift this. It's like, I'll help hold this, okay. So really start where you are. And then also it's just really getting these internships, guys. Like internships are key because one thing, it's about having experience because I know a lot of times I'll see resumes where it says, I have a 3.7. That's beautiful, and I love that for you. But also what really matters is having an internship. Do you have any experience? And a lot of times you can use your credits in undergrad to take internships and get it for credit, right? So you can make it work for you. Are you doing things where there are semesters where you're spending in an area like that has a film industry, for example? Like maybe you are, let's say, for example, let's say you're in a state that doesn't really have a thriving film industry, but you really want to get more experience in the film industry, but you're saying, oh, the location. You can do a semester abroad. A semester abroad doesn't have to be international or it doesn't have to be in a foreign country. It could be a semester abroad in California. It could be a semester abroad at NYU. It could be a semester abroad at USC. Those are programs that are available. And I think particularly at Howard, there is a program where you can literally do a semester at USC. So it's really taking advantage of where you are. It really is looking at your resources and looking at your professors and also at your classes. And lastly, please understand where your career center is. Talk to people about what you're interested in so they can help you build a strategy now, even at freshman level, at sophomore level. It's not too early and it's never too late. So with that being said, I want to transition us into how once you are applying for all these different internships and all these different jobs, how you get the interview. So I will segue it over to our lovely Leslie.
Okay, so that is what I heard and what I took away from, stop the screen share if I can. Can't seem to stop it. All
The
right.
screen share is off. You probably just have another tab open,
Yeah,
and
there you
since
go.
you're not using headphones, we can hear the.
Right. That's Ernie Isley. Okay, guys, sorry about that. So I'm going to ask Cameron, what did you take from that 3 minutes and 49 seconds that Amanda delivered?
I think it was great with giving actual steps that you can do right now to further your career. So like she said, find a career counseling office, for example. Like I think that's something that you can do right now. And I think that's definitely helpful for students.
Right. And what I like about what she can provide is kind of almost like the anatomy of getting the job, but what do you do once you get the job to stay in that job? And what she's really shared with me is the things that she does every day to get the promotion or get the next level of engagement with her boss, with Jeff. Those kind of things are nuggets that I don't know if any professor or any counselor could actually give somebody about this one thing that she's talked about, which is acculturation. Heartbeat has a culture, Laugh Out Loud has a culture, and Heartbeat Studio. They have 3 different sides of the house, and they're not standardized. So I don't know if that's inside industry stuff, but culture is something that she broke down as some of the things that people could do to skill themselves. It's how to do research, how to do the deep dive on personnel or projects or reading the trades. I know Jay has talked to, probably had many panels talk about those things, but they need to be almost in a syllabus for these people so that, yeah, when we talk about things, we can point to, hey, these are things that everybody can do from where they are right now. If you're scouting for an internship or you're trying to get, network to a potential interview for an assistant position or an intern position. So I don't think a lot of people have a playbook for how to do what they can.
If I could say this, you just need to remove me from the panel and let Amanda speak. Okay, that was amazing.
Yes, indeed.
That was amazing. Seriously, it was amazing. I think I have a lot to say, and I think I have good things to say, but I don't want to compete with that.
Okay, but no, those 3 ladies they did 2 hours, 2 hours of that. Amanda's back on with this, and I have another piece of video that she did with 7 students. She spoke to 7 students, and I believe the reason I didn't even ask her about that was because she was not as maybe prepared to have somebody video capture that. But that Zoom presentation she did was even more solid because she's speaking directly to these students of color on that call.
I mean, whether you have a talent, Amanda, or gifted or an anointing to do that, I don't know, but you're really, really good. I'd have to spend more time with you to determine if it's just a gift of who you are. But you were so spot on with what students need to do. And the message that Stacy and I have been preaching for years to students that, wow, I wanted it to continue to play. You were literally that good. But it's the information that you gave. So after this call, you need to reach out to me.
Okay.
Hey, but don't steal her away from us just yet, Ted. Come on, man, give us a chance.
Okay, I won't. I promise not to.
Yeah,
not right away, but we need to talk.
There's a long-term play that I have for Ted. Stacy and those guys are doing a great job, but they're focused on the good work and getting into good trouble trying to get HBCUs to Hollywood. The thing that I'm really focused on is our poor folks in California who have an inherent advantage because they're here, especially in Southern California, and they don't seem to have a onboarding or an on-ramp to get to people like Ted and Stacy. So eventually I'm going to try and get them to maybe look at some of the folks that we can wrangle here who are potential talent. And there's a lot in the state of California at the California State University system, 47%. That's a lot. I thought it was a lot less than that. It's 47%. Long Beach, Cal State Dominguez, Cal State Northridge, Cal State LA, huge Black population there and brown population. Community colleges, 37% of the people in the California community college system. And that's where Ted and I have worked together on trying to deliver messaging to not to the students, but to the rank and file faculty, chancellors, trustees. And it's gone on deaf ears because their systems are closed and they're not really looking for a lot of intervention. So therefore, there's got to be some way for us to put this stuff into a digital packet so that we can point to it and say, hey, after this call, after this Zoom, let's look at some of the most or the top 10 things to do and maybe not to do. And that could be, nuggets for some of the people I'm dealing with at the state and university level. But for the community college students, that'll blow their minds because nobody's ever said this to them in that way. So any reactions to what I said or to what you heard from Amanda other than what Ted said? Jay?
You know what? If you and Amanda could, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jay. What were you gonna say?
No, nothing for me.
If
Go ahead, Ted.
if you and Amanda could work something out where you could take that and you could make that available to students online. Sometimes in life, Kevin, people just they're not ready for you. They're just not. And sometimes your thinking is far above where they are because they haven't allowed themselves to even elevate to that type of thinking. Case in point, it's an odd case in point, but case in point, Black people roll up to the supermarket and we're standing in line and a person cuts in front of us. We analyze, did they cut in front of us because they didn't see us? They cut in front of us because they don't care? We're analyzing and processing all the information. White folks don't have to process like that. When they roll up on a police or someone that's parked out or a situation, Black people have to process information a whole lot of different ways than white people will ever. And because they haven't processed, doesn't mean that they can't, but it usually means that they don't think like that. So sometimes your thinking is a little superior to where people are. And then sometimes they're afraid of your thinking. So, if I'm trying to date a girl and she don't want to be with me, I ain't trying to make you be with me. I'll move on. So sometimes you just need to move on to another situation and another avenue to push your message and what's in your heart to push it out, because you deal with a lot of resistance that to me it shouldn't be as much. So
and
anyway,
thank you for saying that, Ted. I think I do have a real opportunity here. They came, meaning the California State University Entertainment Alliance, they came to me. They pitched me, and they pitched me as an individual, not as an organization, because some of the work that I'm doing with the students and the system as a mentor, as a counselor. And they said, this is a marketing opportunity for you. And so what I want—
Well, it is. I told you that for years. I told you that for years, that you should pitch yourself as an individual and quit trying to build your organization. You can build you and build such a reputation that when you turn around and build the organization, it's 10 times larger than it ever could be if you scaled it the way that you want to scale it.
Right.
So I mean, your passion to do the things that you're doing is commended. And when you have people like Amanda, and I didn't get a chance to hear the other girls, but I mean, I don't say things, Amanda, just to be pumping people up, just to make them feel good. Well, sometimes I do. Most of the time I don't, though. I rarely, but in this case, I'm definitely not. That was powerful.
Yeah.
That was powerful.
And these are the things that I saw.
And all students need to hear that.
Yeah, these are the things that I saw as sound bites or just a keynote to the students that I serve. And so I want to say to Amanda, what can we do to get you to reprise that, repurpose that?
So I'm speaking next week, so we'll start there. And I mean, honestly, I will say this. Thank you so much for all the commentary and the feedback. It's just, I'm really just speaking from my experience because I'm passionate about it, because I went through it. And It was funny because the first time I really became a mentor to somebody was probably when I started interning at United Talent Agency. And it was funny because I had mentors and, I was keeping up with them and I was hustling. And then someone asked if I could be their mentor. And I was floored at the time. And I asked my mentor, I'm just like, what do I look like being a mentor? I'm just an intern at United Talent Agency. I'm not even anywhere near where I want to be yet. And she was just like, you're way ahead of somebody who's a freshman in college, who's a high schooler. Like, look at it that way in terms of increments and don't like level yourself off that way. So that's what even inspired me. One of my mentors inspired me to mentor other people. But I think there's a passion because I truly do want people, especially people who look like me, to avoid some of the mistakes or to just know about all the different things out there. So, like, I really try to tell students about Sundance, like back when the world wasn't in COVID, like how Sundance has a program where you can literally volunteer at Sundance for free, yes, but they'll give you free housing if you say you're out of state. And that's an opportunity to get into a film festival and otherwise a way you wouldn't have gotten to, right? So that's how I first experienced a film festival. I saved my little money for my plane ticket, right? And then they had public transportation. I got myself to that festival because they provided me housing, but I didn't know about that until I researched and learned, but no one was telling anybody this. And so to me, it's just information is so powerful. I just feel like it needs to be shared because that's what really is keeping a lot of the people, like people who look like me and just a lot of people behind. They just don't know. And they're not doing the research to ask. They're not curious. And I think one of my talents, I think, is just being curious. I think that's really saved me. And also just being assertive. Like even with my current job now that I have with Jeff, like just full disclosure, and this is like, and everyone knows this, what I applied for the job the first time and I didn't get it. He went a different way. And, I thought we really connected, but I said, okay, fine, let me, that's a disappointment, but let me keep moving on, let me keep pushing, let me keep hustling. And when the job came up again, they didn't reach out to me and ask me to apply again. That would have been lovely. No, I I loved the job. I said, this is a job for me. I'm going to reapply again. And I reapplied again. And the second time it worked. And that was great. And but if I just had let myself feel that I wasn't worthy or, oh, he said no, so maybe I'm not good enough for this industry, then I wouldn't be in this position that I am now. So a lot of it is just, students face defeat and they get so devastated. And I used to be that way. It's true. Be devastated, take an hour a day, whatever you need. But then you have to keep pushing again and again because literally the people who are successful are the people who keep pushing.
Mm.
That's
You
it.
know what? That's so true. Because when I come on the campuses of HBCUs, and we've been to Howard several times, but not so much at Howard, but some of the other HBCUs, I can sense the spirit of that. It's like fear. And they're like, there's not a place for me in Hollywood. As a whole, as a totality, you can sense it. But when the USC, UCLA, Cal State Dominguez, some of those students, and then some of the other local schools, when they're coming to me, they come very confidently, like there is a place for me.
Mhm.
So this is who I am, and this is what I want to do. Almost sometimes in a slight cocky way, sometimes. But people of color, we just don't know. And regardless of what I plan on speaking, when I'm at the HBCUs, I'm always talking about their confidence. I'm always talking about them being worthy. You are worthy. You're born worthy. Always on that same message. So it's just interesting to hear you say those things. And, we need to know that there's a place for us.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to point to, Amanda, and I want to share this document with you. It was Jay wrote it almost 7 years ago. It's called the Digital Pathway Initiative when he was at USC, and it really talked about. It was for me. It was my playbook for what I had to do to challenge myself to network this disruptive idea of saying that is there really a chance to produce a pipeline to Silicon Beach for people like us? And I think based on my experience in 7 years, I have to say almost no. Not a pipeline. We can get drips and drabs but a pipeline? I don't know if we're ready for a pipeline. Jay, what do you think about that?
I think so. I think the idea of, we've talked about this before, and then I have to jump, but two things. First, I don't like the pipeline language because it implies extraction. and it implies extraction of something that's only valuable to the party that's doing the extracting, right? I'm down for like the cultivation of a garden or whatever, but like that whole pipeline thing, I just don't like the language because it implies that the only thing that's valuable is the thing that you can do for the people that are essentially the gatekeepers, right? Second thing is that I would say that the pipeline, challenge is really a myth, in the sense that people think that the pipeline problem is a talent problem. Say, what are we doing about the talent pipeline? Like the problem is that the talent doesn't exist. It's an access problem, right? There's a pipeline problem because the pipes are jacked up. We ain't got enough of them. They're too leaky, and they're often connected to the wrong stuff, right? So, with that as the context, I would say that we have not been able to crack that nut in terms of syncing multiple initiatives by various people who have resources and the best of intentions and connections either to students or employers or whatever, and turning that into one combined resource that opens up the widest possible pathway for a collection of students. That was the big vision, right? Like, that was what we were hoping to be able to do. We haven't gotten there, but I will say that like even the informal connections between us, Kevin, that the little breadcrumbs that you dropped and connecting people with each other have yielded positive outcomes, right? We learn from each other, which makes us better at the stuff that we do. It's also often inspiring, like listening to Amanda talk about what needs to happen and everything, what students need to do. Like that kind of stuff gets you fired up to go back and do it again. So it's not like there's no positive outcomes, and we have run some programs, but the master plan, which would be like, okay, well, we have HBCU in LA, we have Heartbeat Studios, we have the interests of companies like Apple, we have people working at these different educational institutions, and we have access to students at various levels of development, high school students, community college students, four-year college students, and so on. Like, what can we do with the whole thing? That we haven't gotten there yet. But I think, that's, to me, baby steps, man. Put points on the board. Let's keep iterating and doing programs that make a positive impact. And, as the body of work grows and we get good at doing certain things, it will become more apparent where we can kind of combine some of the other talented people and resources we have access to, because I think that credibility that comes from success will help people feel more willing to, give a little bit more. But also, as we figure out what's easy for us or what we're good at and what actually resonates with our stakeholders, then it's much easier to tell a story around, okay, well, this is what, we're going to try to do this, and this is how you fit in, and this is how you fit in, and this is how you fit in. We're not there yet.
No.
Right. So
I want to start putting that together, some map or just some place where people can say, yeah, I can see myself collaborating with you. And that's what I'm doing right now, Jay. I think I've got a couple of people who think that they're in competition with me, and I'm saying, hey, I'm whatever it is you think, hey, you have open source access to anything I've got if you're trying to help the students. And that's what I want to make is the last takeaway from this panel is that, hey, if you got something, if you got some students, come on, let's do something before it's too late. So that's what I want everybody to think about, is how do we make this open source so that, because everybody's looking for funding and everybody needs this and they need that and they got the brands. And I understand that. I've suffered more than anybody in trying to be a collaborator. And I think I'm getting closer to understanding that I've got to make myself a lightning rod in order for people to jump on a bandwagon. So I've tried that with funding. I've got some funding. I've got the affinity with Heartbeat Studios. That didn't work. So I'm going to try something a little different. And this panel and CSUEA is maybe the first time I found a potential client that will let me work with their students, their faculty, and whatever we can get through from a marketing standpoint. I hope to be able to start creating some case studies. So I got 4 students I'm working with right now, but I want Amanda to really think about what can become a very small seed that we can plant that can start to sprout over a period of time that she can see herself involved and be some proponent of this change of attitude, especially of the people who are the gatekeepers, but specifically our brown and black students who just don't know that their tones, and this is what Amanda and I talked about, her tones and everything have got to be checked. So I know Amanda's got to leave. I think everybody's probably said enough. So just look out for some more emails about Wednesday, 1 to 2 o'clock. And hope to see everybody on that panel. So you're all welcome. These 4 people, you guys made it. I've got 2 other people who couldn't make it, have good excuses, 2 women, and I think we'll have a nice balanced panel. Okay? Any questions, suggestions, or comments before we break?
No.
All right, great. Have a great weekend. See you guys Wednesday.
All right. Nice meeting everyone.
Have a good one.